few years ago, my wife and I had an interesting conversation with a friend of ours who was an artist in Canada. We were discussing the motivations for her work on lichens, which was fascinating. She told us that the motivation emerged from a moment in which she was hiking up a trail in the Canadian Rockies, and suddenly she came upon an opening in which she could see the vast expanse of the mountains, the plains and valleys below with the meandering rivers. We thought that sublime vista was what every hiker seeks, the overwhelming sense of taking in the panoramic landscape. Yet our friend Rhonda did something very different and quite radical in my opinion. Instead of taking in the landscape and the vistas, she decided to look down on the ground, to the stones and undergrowth that she found there. And it was there that she saw lichens in beautiful patterns attached to rocks. My research draws from that awareness of the power of sublime panoramic vistas in making invisible those other things strewn across the ground. My friend's artistic gesture reveals how the representation of landscape is complicit with specific modes of knowledge production, which in the Americas are often linked with settler imaginaries that favor describing those lands as vacant and empty plains. Spurred on by my research, I traveled extensively to see for myself the very many different plains of South America. From the Pampas to the Andean High Plains to the Pantanal wetlands, my research has sought to describe what I term as the dominant imaginaries of the plains. You see, the repetition of certain portrayals of nature in the Americas tends to enact the settler experience of arriving and not having the conceptual tools to understand these seemingly new environments. I say seemingly new because indigenous communities had long ago inhabited those lands, only to be forcefully displaced by settlers, along with those modes of knowing and interacting with the land. My work has identified a series of recurrent representations of the plains in Latin American canonical literature. The plains as empty deserts, the plains as ruined lands, the plains as sites of predation and ferality. Beyond canonical literature, these representations of plains geographies can be found in different media to this very day. For example, the recent remake of the science fiction film Mad Max, with its vast empty deserts that are plains. These are very, very powerful images that continue to captivate us nowadays. And it is in that sense that they are dominant. They efface other possible ways of imagining and knowing those lands. To engage with the current climate crisis is to also consider how our dominant imaginaries of nature validate certain practices throughout the world, from intense monoculture to resource extractivism. Identifying such representations is a means of generating interstices through which to allow other modes of knowing and inhabiting the planet. And not unlike the gesture implicit in my friend's engagement with lichens, my work continues to shift our attention towards other ways of seeing and imagining the world around us.